Greetings, greetings, greetings. Al Achad coming right back at you from the Holography Patreon. So now this week, I want to get into something that helps us understand the connections of all anything we're talking about to alchemy. Because if you got read my book, holography, the writing of the whole writing of the arts and sciences as one educational discipline, you'll get a whole rundown and an explanation and proof, evidence that alchemy is the mother of sciences, and there isn't a science that you can come up with, past, present, or future, that does not become some sort of subcomponent, subsidiary, or you know subsection of alchemy itself. So today we're going to get into you know how alchemy becomes chemistry, and what chemistry, as far as its physical attribution, like talking about chemistry in a college course, or chemistry in industrial, what I'm saying, chemistry in cooking, chemistry in anything, what I'm saying, talking about the physical, so-called elements that make up the so-called physical realm. And also we're going to get right into this right here, which is dealing with a concept called animism. So animism, like I said, we don't even, before we get any deeper or more depthical, before we get into any type of scholarly works, any websites, simply put, the attribution of a soul, and you can, exchange that with spirit as well. Soul or spirit to plants, inanimate objects, and natural phenomena. And then if you go over here, just right here in Wikipedia, animism is the belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct spiritual essence. So spirit and soul become like an interchangeable word. Animism perceives all things, animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather systems, human handiwork, and in some cases, words, as animate and alive. It is alive. Now, this puts things into perspective when you compare it to something like this, alchemy. And that's what we're going to explore today. So with animism, that means everything is alive. There's nothing lacking a soul or spirit. I mean, there's ways you can explain that something doesn't have a soul. And, if you've been watching my content for the longest, you've heard me explain that. But definitely spirit, because there's nothing that is without spirit, especially according to this animism. Now, you can be in denial about animism, like saying that, oh, this isn't alive, it doesn't have a spirit. There's a difference between animate and inanimate objects. They have a whole thing in Western science that, a rubric to, to judge and evaluate whether something is alive or it's living or not. Matter of fact, viruses, for example. There's hot contention and debate as to whether these viral microbes are alive or not. Of course, bacteria, what I'm saying, and anything in that realm. But as far as like a virus is concerned, some people will sit here in the science world and their science world and say, virus isn't a living creature. It doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't follow these criteria for a living creature. But when you get into something like animism, which is also closely tied with shamanism, and what I do is very, right there with dealing with shamans and stuff like that. Sometimes your beard is be bushy and the hair getting your tongue and shit. You gotta pull it out, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, shamanism, animism, they go hand in hand, because for a lot of shamans, whether we're talking about here in the Americas, Europe, Africa, Asia, wherever you want to go, Australia, you know, these people tend to understand a more holistic view of the cosmos and the universe. So to them, if the universe is alive, why wouldn't anything else in the universe be living or have some sort of spirit, spiritual essence, right? Like I got highlighted over here. So that means your computer, your phone, your pencil, your remote controller, or remote control, like black people like to say, remote control, the food you eat, whether you're eating it rare, like some people like a tartar, you know what I'm saying? You might as well just bite the cow on its ass and call it a lunch or supper, or someone who likes it well burnt done. You know what I'm saying? It's all still spirited. Now, with spirit is concerned, how I would explain spirit is a word to describe or to denote or to reference force of being, force of existence. So by that definition, if you look at spirit that way, then everything is spiritual. There's nothing that is not spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that, without even having because I got etymology for some of this stuff I'm about to talk about here. But as far as spirit is concerned, spiritus Latin is breath. You know what I mean? Breath. Pneuma in Greek. Pneuma. Pneuma. Breath. Spirit. All the same thing, right? So the force of existence for us, as so-called living, inhabiting a living creature's body, like a living organism, there's usually a respiration going on. There's a breathe in, breathe out. You know what I mean? But a lot of people like to focus on the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and that type of that degree of respiration. But what about the force of your breath? What forces oxygen out or in and carbon dioxide out? What is that force? Is it your diaphragm? Is it the muscles in your lungs? No, there's a force that governs over your lungs. This is the whole thing about a shrine, you being a living shrine. So you have your overall spirit, and then there's subsections of your spirit that deal with this part of your body, that part of your body. You know what I'm saying? You're one fucking composite shrine of spirit, force of existence. So when we get into something like animism, now if we go into chemistry, just regular ass chemistry, you see that chemistry is just the animism that is removed from alchemy. Or said another way, chemistry is alchemy with the animism removed. Peep that line. It's a hot line. You know what I'm saying? It's a scorching, sweltering hot line. Alchemy is chemistry without the animism. Because when you put animism back into the chemistry, now you're understanding why alchemy is not only just dealing with, elements of the earth and all that stuff, but it's also dealing with your spirituality, your transmutation, your transformation, genetics, all these different sciences that are really just children of alchemy. So, going into alchemy, we know that, just dealing with the etymology of this one is really an Arabic word for the art of alloying metals or the art of dealing with the black earth or the black substance. To me, it's a black substance to me. And that black substance is what creates everything else in existence. So that's what makes you the alchemist. So this is why I say alchemy is the mother of sciences, because it is the one element, chemia, that makes up everything else, whether we're talking about something that's tangible or intangible, something that's physical or metaphysical. You know what I'm saying? Nominal or phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? Mental or, you know what I'm saying, of the earth. So when you get into chemistry, which again is just taking this word chemia, coming from the Greek, it was Arabic coming, but Arabic is taken from the Greek. It's dealing with, they try to put this thing of dealing with metals and stuff like that, but also the whole thing of, what is metal then? Let's go over here. So metal is a chemical element, first and foremost, before we get into any more details about it. It's a chemical element, but chemical goes back to being something about alchemy. So what if you took the metals, the gases, the salts, and all these different things that you find on the periodic table of elements, right? That established periodic table that we all seen in science class, throughout our years of being in motherfucking public school and private school too. You know what I mean? And we look at these elements as having a spirit to them. So now oxygen is not something that is, dead. It's spirited. Carbon is spirited. Gold has a spirit to it. Silver, platinum, these all have a spirit to it. Neon, you know what I'm saying? Beryllium, or you know what I'm saying? Just random. I'm just naming plutonium, potassium, sodium, silicon. What if these physical elements have a spiritual essence to them? Because now this is where you go into, if you want to, you go into herbology and dealing with plants and tinctures and tonics and creating these herbals to heal people, right? Because if you go and pick a berry from a plant or a leaf or a root, though when you pick them, these are, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that these plants are alive. You know what I'm saying? There's no doubt, and it should be no doubt in anybody's mind. You know what I'm saying? You got it from a tree, a root, you know what I'm saying, a shrub, or you know what I'm saying, a bush somewhere that was living when you picked it, and that essence is, clearly there, even when you bring it somewhere in the house or in a building or in a factory to be, you know, turned into something else or become an ingredient for a concoction of some sort. But the thing that you need to understand, if you really going to get into that work, is that that berry, that root, that leaf, that herb, that shrub has a spirit to it. And from an alchemist perspective, dealing with animism, we mix those spirits together. And you have to know the recipe, not just putting the elements of that together, but this mixing the spirit of it together. Mm, a spiritual mixture, not merely a physical one, a spiritual mixture, a spiritual amalgamation, a fusing of the essence of these physical elements together, as a one thing. Because what would then prove that to you? What else can be other evidence? So let's deal with the seven metals in alchemy, the seven main metals, right? Here we'll do it image wise, so pictures keep people, it gives them a visualization. So right here, simple: silver, moon; iron, Mars; mercury, obviously Mercury; tin, Jupiter; copper, Venus; lead, Saturn; gold, Sun. So what you're looking at here is animism. These are intelligences. These are mental features of your own spirit or soul. And there are elements assigned to them. So this is the clue right into the animism that I'm talking about. Now, if you go to regular chemistry, this connection isn't there. You won't see this connection in here. There's nothing in none of your chemistry courses that you ever took in college or in high school or grade school that tells you that gold, lead, iron, copper, silver, they have a spiritual essence to them, because you're not there to learn alchemy. You're there to learn mere chemistry, right? Now, this is important for those who are shamans, occultists, alchemists, you know what I'm saying? Herbalists, and even Abaifo and opium. This is the stuff we know. And because we know it, now we can use it to our advantage. So now we know silver has an essence to it. Copper has an essence to it. Plastic has an essence. Wood has an essence to it. And if you are in tune with that essence, you can manipulate that essence to your will. Yes, you can do shit like that. Because you understand the spirit behind the actual physical thing. So again, it's more about, if you're going to sit here and make a mixture, you're really mixing the essences rather than the actual physical material. That's wisdom right there. This is why, like, for example, there's some people that are so sensitive to this stuff that if they're going to go pick a apple or an orange or some berries or take leaves or roots of some plant, they do it with respect. Not just you going to yank it up from the fucking dirt. No, it's almost like you're speaking to the plant. Ever heard of that? How they keep coming out with these experiments where if you talk positive and have uplifting emotions in your words as you speak to the plant responds, you know, in tandem with you and produces a wealth of fruit, a wealth of seeds, a wealth of lettuces and leaves and shit. Lettuces, what the fuck is lettuces? But anyway, they keep doing this experiment over and over and over. It's a new age thing now. You know what I'm saying? You gotta speak love and harmony and happiness, to your tomato plant, so it'll give real juicy tomatoes. You gotta speak love to it. That's a real science. Because you're not dealing just with the flesh of the tomato or the juice of the tomato or the seeds or the stalk or the stem of it. You're dealing with the overall essence of that plant. It's alive. So as you would speak to your fellow man or your fellow woman, you're speaking to the plant in the same way. You're speaking to the seeds in the same way, kernel work. You're speaking to, the tree in the same way. That animism is at the heart of what I do. Not just in dealing with plants, but just dealing with everything in general. It all has a spirit. Even these electronic devices. I know this is a repeat, but again, your phone, your laptop, your computer, your camera, you know what I'm saying? Your car, your fucking house as it's, wired up with all types of electrical current running through it. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive, nigga. It's living. But sometimes you don't want to see it that way because you think when it's something is living, like, it can see, it can smell, it can do what you do. Like you look at your dog, your pet dog, or a bird flying outside somewhere, or a bug, crawling on your window like a fly or something, and it's like, oh, that's a living because it's moving, it's interacting with its environment. If I go close to it, it may fly away or something like that, or it may attack me, depending on my approach to it. But you can say that about things that aren't as obvious, like your own home, as electricity is running through it. I've said this before. Electricity is an animating energy. It animates things. So whatever it animates, it breathes life into it. It is a spirit, a current of spirit. But again, if you don't want to look at it that way because of your materialist philosophy of things, which conquers the whole Western world, to them in their science, this stuff isn't alive. Because the scope of this shit is not even just here, on Earth. Like if you want to even look into stars and planets and moons and quasars and shit, is that non-living activity up there? What if the star is a living creature? What if the sun is a living being? It has a consciousness. It has a sentience to it. It's sapient. You can communicate with it. But your communication, you're going to sit here and speak English to it, or, you know what I'm saying? What if there's a language it speaks that you don't know nothing about? And if you knew the language to speak it, you could communicate with the sun as you would speak to me or anybody else right next to you or something like that. That's what is missing from chemistry to make it alchemy. You put back in the animism into spirit, or put the animism back into chemistry, you have alchemy now. And that's the lost key to this whole alchemy chemistry connection. But again, this is something that they're going to educate you about or tell you about or teach you about in no fucking public institution of schooling. I mean, you may sit here and learn about animism and shamans and their, so-called belief in animism, but again, there's overwhelming